good morning to other people in different countries, regions, zones of this world. I know there are a lot of people from different areas. So I'll get into it right now. So the current position that Mr. Eugene occupies is Managing Director and Owner at ERG Industrial. His highest qualification is a Master in Engineering, and I'll shortly read his bio now. Eugene is currently the Managing Director at ERG Industrial. ERG is a company that has been spearheading change in terms of innovation and value creation in the blasting game for the mineral industry. At the center of all these cool things that ERG gets to do, the main focus is to help mines to improve their blasting outcomes. As you all know, that blasting is the first step in the mining value chain, and any gains that you make in blasting lead to exponential gains in the downstream productivity and profitability of the operation. So basically, Eugene helps mines and quarries achieve these gains. However, just like all of us, Eugene has had a journey of self-discovery and development. Eugene studied at the University of Pretoria, where he completed his honors in mining engineering in 2014. He would further his expertise in the mining engineering industry by completing a master's in mining engineering in 2016. During this period of study, Eugene also worked as a freelance consultant at Enterprise, and as well as a research and development engineer and a part-time lecturer at the University of Pretoria. Um, Eugene will take up the role of non-executive director at Umaki in 2018. In 2019, he will take up the non-executive director role for Fox in a Box, which is a consultancy firm that specializes in engineering and mining services and solutions. Finally, in 2019, ERG Industrial was born and he spearheads the operation ever since. Thank you so much for listening to Mr. Eugene's bio.
We are excited and happy to have you. How has your day been?
Yeah, first, thanks, Toby. Thanks, everyone from AfriMine for having me here, and warm welcome to all the guests attending. If my backdrop looks a bit funny, I don't know if, well, there's South Africans on the call. I'm in load shedding, so I'm having to sit in the car to get some electricity for my device. Today's been good. It's been a bit of a hectic week. Earlier this week on Monday, we went out to a coal mine out Middelburg side in South Africa. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and today we were down in the Northern Cape at some of the manganese and iron ore mines, working on some blasting related projects. So I managed to get home finally about an hour or so ago. So glad to be home, glad to join on the session.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Eugene, I'll take it right on from here. So you've been in the mining industry for quite a while. And as for me, I actually know you before the interview because you make videos on blasting activities and productivity on LinkedIn, and I'm quite an avid fan. And I also understand that you have a TikTok account. I haven't checked that. I mean, is that true?
Yeah, so sorry, there was a question in the first part, I missed it, but on the TikTok account, what happened is we, about last year, April, we started looking into LinkedIn as a great tool to show what we're doing as a company, to show what our brand is, to show the world what can be done in blasting in a new way. And we've got some good success with LinkedIn. We're in a privileged position where we get to go to so many different sites, film super cool things with drones and up close cameras and some stuff you don't normally see. And we decided to see whether we could get some more value out of our content by sharing it on TikTok. But to be honest with you, TikTok is a lot of work. It's more work than what LinkedIn is, in my opinion. You are at the mercy of your fans there. So started an account, and we haven't posted in quite some time. So we looking at bringing TikTok alive again, but time is always a constraint. LinkedIn already takes a fair amount of time, but TikTok, a lot of value in TikTok. It's no longer just for kids and for jokes and for fun. There's a lot of business value in it as well. Do you have a TikTok account?
Nah, not yet, sir, but I'm sure after this I'll be setting up one. All right. So Eugene, it's been about 10 years since you graduated with your the undergrad degree, and then you decided to further your studies with a master's in mining engineering. And I just wanted to know why you chose mining, from the get-go.
So if I can start at the beginning, you do those, and I'm sure a bunch of you have done those aptitude tests in high school that tell you this is what you should go and study based on your profile. So my aptitude test told me my first choice would be graphic design. It was what it told me. Second choice was architecture, and third choice was mechanical engineering. And then I ended up choosing mining engineering. The main reason at the time was I'd spent a bit of time with people working in the mining industry and was just fascinated by the amount of control that you could get as a mining engineer, where it's a case on mines where we saw that diagram of all of the phases of mining and all of the roles that you can play in it. And in most cases, the mining engineer at a mine is the one that needs to understand the roles of all of those individuals and bring it together to make things work. So that is what drew me to mining, is that you're able to almost, if you can use the analogy, you the master of the symphony. You've got all of these moving parts that have to work together to make music. So that's what drew me to mining, is not just focusing on something specific, but seeing the bigger picture.
All right. What I'm getting from this is that you like music. I'm joking. But while you were studying, if you can recall, what was your experience like, during your study period, school, and that aspect of your career?
So I started studying my undergrad degree in 2010. Is it 2000? Yes, 2010. That was when the Soccer World Cup was in South Africa.
Yes.
So the first 2 years of studies, and I believe it's very similar across the world. It's fairly generic engineering subjects. They hit you with a bunch of maths I always saw it as they hit you with crazy maths to make you clever, to make you take it to the next level so that you're ready for the hard stuff to come. So the first 2 years, it was a bit more about socializing and making friends and enjoying campus life, and not really too passionate about any of the subjects because of how generic it is. It's the building blocks to getting to where you're going to really start specializing. So from the third year and the fourth year is when we really started focusing on mining subjects and geology and all of those different moving parts, pretty much all of those portions on that diagram we saw earlier, looking at that. And I had a really good time studying in my year. It wasn't a lot of us studying together. I think in the end, it was about 23 that graduated. And it's great because you're a close-knit group. You're going away on tours to go see mines. You're building a network. This is the start of your network that you're building. So in summary, the studies were great. Sometimes a bit hard. I'm sure a bunch of you have had that subject, electricity and electronics and chemistry and stuff like that. And for me, I could never understand that. So the goal was to get 51% to pass it. But yeah, studies was a good time. Retrospectively, I do think that some of the content was slightly outdated. If you look at the context and who presented the content, it is older folk from the mining industry. So if I had the chance to revamp some of that content for the new generation, I definitely would.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. You did mention that the mining engineer's role is to coordinate a lot of activities. And we all know that you pursued your degree in mining engineering. So what we are interested in finding out is, why did you choose blasting? Because you said there are a lot of activities. So how did you get involved in blasting? How did that start for you? And how has the journey been?
So it's going to be an answer you wouldn't expect. If I can give you a brief summary from when I finished studying up until the blasting came about. So myself, I've always been entrepreneurial at heart. I've always had entrepreneurial spirit in me. And even while studying at university, myself and my current business partner, Reynard, we started our first business. It was a mobile app called Party At, and it basically showed you where the party was at, the events, drink specials, all of this stuff. And we didn't manage to get it to succeed. We got a lot of people to download it, but we can never monetize. To be honest, we just didn't know what we were doing. So I mentioned that little anecdote because it's important, the entrepreneurial spirit. So when I finished studying, there was a program at the university where you could stay on and you could complete your honors degree while getting paid a salary and doing some work for them. And then there was, after that, an opportunity with a sister company of the university that did consulting, to work with them while completing a master's and doing projects, a bunch of projects, more on the health and safety side for organizations like the Department of Mineral Resources, the Mine Health and Safety Council, the Minerals Council, or the Old Chamber of Mines. And during all of this, a couple of other businesses tried and failed. And I'd say from about 2016, 2015, 2016, 2017, 95% of my work was doing engineering consulting work. And my personality is such that as soon as I master some kind of skill, then I kind of get bored with it. Then I want to go on to the next challenge. So how blasting came about is I got a bit tired of the consulting environment, in that from a financial perspective, if you don't work, there's no pay. And coupled with the entrepreneurial spirit and businesses that we started, like Umaki, like Fox in a Box, we experimented with supply of goods. We experimented with a bunch of things to kind of learn what we were skilled at and what we weren't. And we scanned the environment in mining to see where is the lowest hanging fruit in terms of adding value, and decided on blasting. And purely because generally blasting standards are very poor. Blasts aren't very good at all. And then we tried to couple that to the business side of things, to move away from selling hours to selling products. And we scanned the environment, found this great product, patented product in the US. There's basically a stemming plug, a product that helps to retain energy in blasting and leads to a bunch of advantages. And we managed to convince these Americans to give us the distribution right for Africa for this product. And then we had to try and figure out how we're going to bring it to market. So the very long intro to the answer, how did blasting come about, is it was an opportunity. I always say that if you want to find business opportunities, you look for problems. So we found the problem of poor blasting. We found a product that you could sell high volumes, you could create high value, And then we started upskilling ourselves in the art of blasting. So why blasting is it was an opportunity to create immense value for mines. And if I'm talking immense value, staggering figures like changing one or two parameters, bringing in a small incremental change and saving mines. If I can give an example, one of our manganese clients, they're putting an additional almost 300 million rand in their pocket after paying for our services and our goods. So that's, as I said, the long intro and answer to why blasting. A hell of a lot of value, but there was also a great business opportunity for us to go into the supply of bulk consumables for the mining industry.
Absolutely beautiful story. Thank you.
Amazing, 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 Eugene. I think we can all draw that where the problems are and solutions are found is where the money is. And to move on to our next question, you know, you've had experience, you've talked about your experience, you know, in the sales, supplies of bulk, how your other businesses, you know, failed, the startups and everything. But my question is, why did you, you know, diversify your career, and did it help in any way to transition you to your current role and position?
Yeah, so if I had to think about it, if I can just make sure I understand your question correctly, you're asking, having kind of jumped from consulting to a completely different space, has that helped my career?
Yes, from consulting, the academia, and you know the other spaces you worked in, like the startups. Has that helped you transition to your current role?
Absolutely. If I can speak to each one of those in their own right. So the experience in business and entrepreneurial ventures, before starting ERG Industrial, I had started 8 different companies in 5 years, doing all kinds of different things, and the majority of them failing for different reasons. Never failing for the same reason. That's the guiding principle: never make the same mistake twice. But failing for a bunch of different reasons, but primarily because they were always treated as side hustles while there's a main job going on. So what that taught me is to view failure completely differently. And I don't like the word failure because it's a negative connotation, where failure is just another opportunity to learn what not to do. And that hence why I say it's you can fail once, but don't fail again for the same reason. So that's where that helped me. It gives you a very thick skin. It gives you big match temperament to be able to manage high pressure situations, all of those things. The academia side also helped me immensely. With the master's engineering degree that I got, it was basically a thesis that focused on developing a process of how to bring new technologies into mines. So it's a step-by-step process on how do you go from introducing a concept on a mine, how do you go about testing it, how do you go about actually measuring KPIs and demonstrating that value. So I think with some of the facial expressions I see, you can see where this is going. So that helped immensely in terms of understanding, if you've now found a technology that you know can add value, how do you bring it to the mining industry and actually add value? The mining industry is an incredibly difficult one to enter into as a supplier, as a contractor, as anybody not working for the mine. It's not easy. It's probably the industry that's the hardest that I've ever experienced to tap into, and it takes the longest. You've got sales cycles in mining, and by sales cycle I mean if you identify a prospect, a mine, and you want to try to convince them to buy your product, our average sales cycle is about 18 months. So a year and a half from starting to talk to them buying the first batch of products. So The academic side, the masters helped a lot in knowing how to bring it to market, and all of the work that I also did in academia, it gives you a different kind of objectivity. There's a lot of subjectivity amongst contractors and suppliers, as well as consultants. So objectivity is a good thing, where you can present scientific, honest results of what you're doing. And the consulting side, that also that taught skills like project management. It taught skills of also big match temperament in negotiations, because my role was maybe 40% in the actual consulting, 60% was in business development, going to tender meetings, writing up tender proposals, and getting the business. So all of that, there's not a single thing I've done that hasn't helped transition into this role. But I'll share with you and the audience, the biggest shock for me transitioning a role is I'd come to a point in the consulting game, in the niche area I was working, where I was kind of somebody that if I phone you, then you answer the phone. There was a reputation to it. There was respect to it, and all of a sudden you become a supplier, or you're viewed as a supplier, and you basically right at the bottom of the hierarchy in mining. People don't treat you well if you don't have a reputation. They don't care for what you're trying to achieve. They just basically step on suppliers. And that's also where the LinkedIn came in. We saw we had to do something to really accelerate the brand and the reputation, so that when we go to sites, people know us. When the name ERG Industrial is said, people know that, and they couple that to positivity and to value. That's basically the transition wasn't easy, but the tools were there to help.
Absolutely beautiful. You literally just peeped into my next question, which was around asking how you landed your first client. But you already expressed and talked about it. But I think I'd like to ask, you've talked about a lot of projects that you're working on. You spoke about the one that you worked on yesterday and you're working on today. I'm sure there are some that you really loved the experience and it was fascinating and it will always stand out for you. And there are some that are not that lovely. So would you mind sharing the experiences of both of them? We'd like to learn from you what it was like to have your very best project and to have your worst project.
Sure. So I'll disguise the project so that it's not knowledge which sites these were, but the worst experience we had was at a diamond mine. I won't mention the name or the country. It was in the early days of us testing the product, and we got to site, and immediately we saw that management wasn't good and quality wasn't good, and not even safe. Where when I'm talking quality, they're supposed to be drilling 4 by 4.5 drill pattern, and there was no rhyme or reason to their drill pattern. Some was it was ranged between 3 to 5 by 2 to 4.5. It was as if someone had just gone and stabbed holes in the ground haphazardly as they just on a whim. And what we were doing there is we were doing a split test. We were putting our product on one side of the block, not on the other side of the block, so that you can capture data to visually illustrate better energy retention during blasting. And we set off the blast, and we could see a difference. It was a very poor blast due to the quality, but despite that, we could see the difference. And for a bunch of reasons, we weren't able to see the footage afterwards. We saw it with our eyes first. And then the site, they had hired a contractor, a consultant for their blasting, and this guy had a chip on his shoulder. So when the results came our way, what they had done, and it took us about 5 months to figure this out, is they had swapped the data. They had done fragmentation analyses, particle size distribution. Our side had outperformed their side by far. and they had swapped the data for whatever reason. There was some negativity from the consultant, and at some point, if I understand correctly, the client, the mine, had asked the consultant, kind of told him, why did it take external guys to come and solve this problem? And then he had cooked the data. And then the mine had sent us letters that we had caused damage and a whole bunch of things. So we went through this horrible process of one individual manipulating the data to protect themselves and to try and put bad light on us. So that's probably the lowest point. You start questioning whether you've gone crazy in your recollection of the events, but we were able in the end to prove it. And that mine actually is now a client of ours using the product. So it turned out well in the end. The best one is, I wouldn't necessarily say single events, but the best one is one of our clients down in the Northern Cape, where we were able to essentially, I don't want to say save the mine, but we were able to bring about so much value in terms of fixing their blasting, where the unique thing about manganese is, if you look at how it's sold, you sell two products. You sell lumpy product and you sell fines. And your fine is anything under 6 millimeters. Your lump is anything between 6 and 25 millimeters. And the critically important point here is your fines is sold at almost 40% discount to your lump product. So now you can imagine, the more fines you generate during blasting, you're blasting money away, because you want lump that you can sell for 40% more. So they were operating at a ratio of about 77% lump to 23% fines. We were able to demonstrate over a 9-month period that we could bring their fines down to 15%, for 15% fines, 85% lump. And not a huge site. They ended up, what they're spending about 5.5 million rand with us per year. But for that, they're getting a net gain on their books in terms of asset value and additional sales of 330 million rand. So that's an incredible feeling, because our entire philosophy and outlook is we want to create value, and creating value like that has significant impacts in you essentially able to increase the GDP of the country by just making a couple of tweaks to blasting. So we've got a lot of those success stories, but that one stands out. That was the first big one where you have to kind of rub your eyes to understand those numbers. It's incredible.
Well, thank you so much, Eugene. That is amazing. I think that was such an inspiring story. Earlier on, I was trying to put some pieces together as to what ERG stands for, and I was like, Eugene, but there's an R. Is it an acronym, or what's going on there, sir?
So what I learned in my life doing startups, new companies, is a big mistake people make. They choose a name, a great name, then the domain isn't available for purchase. So then you've got a company called whatever, Toby's Company, but tobyscompany.com is not available. So then you're forced to use some kind of other URL. So when we chose the name, we came up with 3 options, and then we looked at which domains were available. So in the end, ERG Industrial, we were playing around with ERG Industries. I can't remember the other one. And ERG Industrial was available, but what it stands for is an acronym. So E is for my name, R is for Reynard, and G is for our third partner in the business. He's not an active operational member of the team. He's a non-executive director, but that's the G. It's simply the names of 3 dudes.
Okay. No, that's amazing. All right, Eugene. So, I mean, at the beginning of this journey, you've really gone into depth to tell us about a lot of things about, experiences and the journey that you had to the top. But my question now is, what skills have you found most important or necessary in this development of ERG, or even in your career and professional development?
Without a doubt, the people skills, working on EQ, working on emotional intelligence, being empathic with people, being sympathetic with people, understanding people and why they do the things that they do. That's probably the single most important skill to have, not just in the mining industry. It is, I think, enhanced in the mining industry, but that for me is the most important skill. It's all about being able to work with people. It's a very harsh world out there, especially in mining, especially if you go into the business world of mining, where this is something that I dislike greatly. But you can go to a mine, you can have a technology that saves them hundreds of millions of rands or makes them hundreds of millions of rands or dollars, and still not get them to buy it because they simply don't like you. It sounds crazy, but that happens more than you can imagine. Is somewhere along the line you've offended somebody, you without knowing it, you've shed them in a bad light, you've exposed a bad practice or something of the kind, and then you don't get it. So it's very important to have those skills so that you understand the politics side of mining, but also genuinely caring about people and their opinions. There's no room for egos. I always say whether it's a CEO that I'm working with or engaging with, or whether it's a drill rig operator, you can learn as much and get as much value from both. So my approach is always when we start working with a new site, we take a shotgun approach in terms of the hierarchy. So we there on the block, we're sweating, we're working with the crews, and then later on we're in the boardroom with the executives. So we penetrate at all levels so that we can really understand the culture of the mines. We can win them over by truly showing empathy and not you typically in mining it's a fairly old type of thinking, hierarchical type of thinking, where how dare a junior engineer question what the mine manager is saying. So we have gotten rid of all of that, where in fact we've gained the most value from the least expected places and people.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. So if you are listening and you have a question, please feel free to use the chat box and drop your questions. We'll ask Eugene your questions, and I'm sure you'll be more than happy to answer. So my question is, you said the mining industry has an old thinking. You've mentioned a number of the challenges that you experience. So do you think that thinking is changing? Do you think there's going to be a progress? Can you see a trend of change so far with all the clients you've worked with?
Absolutely. And it's a fairly rapid change that's coming, because it is the next generation that is stepping into positions of control now, and not to make it a generational thing. It's even with some of the older generations, you also see that change. There's a bigger adoption of or acceptance of technologies, and an acceptance of how can I phrase this? Because you've introduced some new stuff, some high-tech things, and couple that to just the general global increase in technology use, especially amongst older generations, there's acknowledgement that I don't know everything anymore, and that the younger people in the industry, although they don't have as much experience as I do, they have more experience on the technology side. So I see a very rapid change in that. From what I experienced way back in the start of going to mines in 2010, 2011, and so on. It was an army style type approach. It's become much better, much more inclusive. Also, many more females in mining, which has a very positive impact. So yeah, definitely a change. Sorry, just give me a second. Yeah, I've got a kid shouting for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I've got my son. Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah. So as we round up now, we'd like to ask if you have an opportunity to start a career again, would you have it all over the same way, or would you like it slightly different?
That's a fantastic question. I would probably like it slightly different. I would study the same thing, but I would have loved to do more academic stuff in the industrial engineering space. The industrial engineering principles, those are solid gold for mining engineers. Understanding how different parts of a system work together, how to optimize them. So yeah, that's probably what I would change is looking at more industrial engineering activities and education. But other than that, no. I'm pretty happy with what I've done and how it's helped me to develop.
Okay, thank you. All right. Talit, Tal, do you have any questions?
Not really. I feel like what Eugene has said was clear and straight to the point. All my questions are answered, and I really hope that we can have Eugene back on the set maybe after 10 years to just see how far ERG would have gone.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And since we don't have any question in the box, we would like to finally ask Eugene, if there is somebody listening to you now who wants to be the next Eugene, what is the one advice you give him or her?
Wait, so the question was, if there was somebody listening that wants to be the next Eugene,
Yes.
what would be the advice?
Yes.
Don't. There's a lot of heartache. There's too much heartache on the journey. No, I'm just kidding. So if there's someone in the audience that's similar to me, who is firstly passionate about creating value, as well as passionate about business and people, and wants to pursue something similar, learn about business. I never had any formal business education. It was all learning kind of on the street, by failing, by trying out and not having stuff work. So look at getting some type of courses. I wouldn't say go do an MBA or something like that. There's so many valuable short courses online. So get a bit of formal training in business, and find yourself a partner to work with. Just like in a relationship or a marriage, a partnership is incredibly important. And it's the same in business. I've had, for most of my business ventures, the same partner. Hey, hold on, I'm busy finishing. I've had sorry about that, guys. This kid hasn't seen me in many days, so he's excited. Find yourself a partner. When the days are dark, they are incredibly dark. When they're good, they're very good. And a partner is someone to share the wins with, share the losses with, and someone that you can rely on. And the biggest, I think, lesson that I've learned in business is what people tend to try and do is you're a certain type of person. You've got you're very good at certain things, and other things you're not that great at. For me, honestly, project management is not a very good skill of mine. I don't enjoy it. There's many people that are better at it than me, but business development is a great skill of mine. So I've got a partner who's super strong in project management. So the lesson here is basically that don't try and make your weaknesses a bit better. Find somebody that is strong in your weaknesses, forget about it, and focus on making your strengths even stronger. Else you're just going to become an average Joe. If you have a team that complements one another with their skill sets, that's where you win. That's where true strength comes from, is combining forces. So that would be the advice. Get a bit of formal business education, understand the financial side of business, cash flow. Cash flow is more valuable than oxygen. And find yourself a partner, someone that you can cry with, someone you can laugh with, someone you can celebrate with, and someone that complements your skills.
Absolutely beautiful. I'm talking about partnership. I remember that I have met one of your partners. I think it was Jacob. I can't remember. It was at Fox in the Box. It was also, he worked with the UP university at that point in time, and he was telling me on how they were able to generate values of up to 15 million rands for a particular client. So I think that is very, very important. Thank you for sharing that. So we have a question from one of our listeners, and it says, where do you see mining in the next 5 years?
I think 5 years in mining is a very short time. I always make the joke to say that 2 weeks in mining is a day in a normal industry. Mining's a bit of a go slow. So in 5 years from now, I don't see any real significant changes. Back in 2014, we started doing work on virtual reality. Now, this is 8 years ago when the first Oculus VR headsets came out. We did some development work to simulate mines and so on. And back then we were saying in 2 years' time, every single mine's going to have VR training and all of this. And they still don't. It's select mines that have it. The technology has evolved a lot. So it takes time to bring change about in mining. But I think the biggest change that I see in mining is on the people side. In 5 years' time, I think a lot more empathy is being injected into mining, a lot more care about the stuff that the past didn't really care too much about. The environment, the communities, the people involved in the mines. So that's kind of the short term, let's call it 5-year change I see is in the people. If we take a bit of a longer time horizon, I think there's a lot of new technologies coming in, a lot of automated stuff is going to happen, where you're probably going to need maybe a half of the workforce that you have now, and it's mostly on the semi-skilled labor side that we're going to lose employment. But the way that I see it is I always see the industry as a basket, and with removing jobs out of mining, with all of these new technologies and services and outsourced stuff, you're creating jobs within the same basket, just not in the same in the same premises or facility, if you can call it that. So yeah, that's in summary the change I see. 5 years, not all that much, more just on culture, if I can put it to that, and later on the technology, autonomy, etc.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. And Tal, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Eugene, for coming over today. We thank you for answering our questions, and I'll hand this meeting back over to Taliat for him just to round up and just to give the next sequence of events. Otherwise, it's been lovely having you here, Eugene. I would love to, get into touch and hear more about ERG entrepreneurship. I think, like everyone else, I have so much more to learn. Thank you and have a good night.